Like you mentioned that yesterday was fireworks at the Federal High Court in Abuja, where we saw the reaction of Nanikano when his case was called up, and he wanted the court address his original address, but the court said that the time for that had elapsed, and the day was for judgment, and of course he fled up, leading to the judge giving an order that he should be removed from the court premises, and judgment was delivered in his absence, though he had some persons who represented him, those who were his consultants and others. At the end of the day, we saw the judgment, and I must say that since that judgment came out, it's been mixed reactions. To some persons, it was justice served, while to some persons it wasn't. But what do we know? Of course, by the time we begin to do the analysis, we'll get to know what the judgment stands for the people of the Southeast and also for Nigeria. Then you mentioned the fire incident that happened in Oka yesterday. In fact, yesterday morning, I saw a post that was made by fire service at the point when they were responding to that very fire incident. They made a post about it, and this very morning, going through the story, and I discovered that from what they have found out so far on what could be the possible cause of that very fire, it was as a result of somebody who was cooking and slept off. So from there, that was how the fire started. And I have to link it up to what happened in Kano State, where a family of 4 perished in a fire incident. Guess what happened? They lit mosquito coil and slept off. And that was how the entire building was raised down, and the 4 family members got burnt to death. Only one person survived.
That's really sad.
The last child in that very family. Now, it boils down to what you said, that this is a dry season. Of course, very soon we know that the moment Hamatan sets in, everything will become very dry, to the point that once there's fire, things are going to catch easily. Now, what do we need to do this time around? Is for us to be extra careful. Of course, if you're living in your house, make sure that if you have appliances at home, make sure that they are not plugged. They are not plugged to electricity, and make sure say, "Obonis nanja na abu agote extension wire onwe kosi maybe akorcha wire and wire I have to speak this one in Igbo language. Only to Nigerian Budifa, of course, you are risking your life and also the life of and also the residents where you reside. Any dangerous act that might expose us to fire, at this point in time, you have to eschew those things. I do tell people, if you are cooking, even if you are tired and you want to cook, please do not cook. It's better you go out, get something and eat, than when you want to cook, you put something on fire and you go into the room to lie down on the bed. You are inviting fire to your house. And then other things that we need to take care of. Then for you, as somebody who lives somewhere, I think you should also make effort that you should have some preventive measures. At least you need to have a fire extinguisher at your home, so that if any fire sets out, you'll be able to know how to use it. Then for the fire agency, I think that they should also make a number available, because the difference between when fire service responds and damage is the promptness of the information. So I think we have to do a whole lot for us to be able to contain this very fire, because the season is already around the corner.
Absolutely. When you spoke about people cooking and leaving everything to go sleep, it reminded me of one time that I was sick. I had flu. So if you have flu, you need to be extra sensitive, because your house could literally be burning and you would not know.
You'll know.
It happened to me once, and I tell you, it wasn't funny. It was at a point where I saw smoke, but I couldn't perceive what I was cooking burning just beside me. You know how small apartments are now. I'm in the living room, and just beside the living room is a kitchen, and it was burning. I mean, so bad. I saw smoke. I was moving around. I went to the gather. I was checking if there was any compound around. It was right inside my house. So please, if you have flu, for the love of God, be extra careful. Of course, we're going to start off by telling you what the front pages say. And right after that, we're going to be having the conversation around what happened yesterday with a lawyer. Yes, looking at the legal implications, because literally everything that happened yesterday was legal. So first, we're going to tell you what the front pages say. On our desk this morning, we have the Vanguard, the Nation, This Day newspaper, and of course the Punch newspaper. On the front page of the Vanguard newspaper, the banner headline, all not just the Vanguard, but of course all papers across the country, Terrorism, court jails Kanu for life. This story is on page 5 of the Vanguard newspaper. It has a lot of riders. I'll try to capture as much as I can. To forfeit the Biafran radio transmitter to the FG, says his broadcasts incited killings, distractions. Justice in Nigeria, not for Southeast. Abaribe. Ndibo imprisoned for life. Ex-Senate President Wabara. Nigeria has different laws for Southeast. Igbo women. There is a double standard. Oh no, on page 5. And you'd see Shegu Awolowo is dead. On page 6, Lagos raises 244.8 billion naira bonds for infrastructure. On page 10, Atta responsible for Akwa Ibom's increased allocation. Jonathan. On page 3, national interest. Anya Aganga Konde, others chart way, a way forward for Nigeria. On page 7, Nigeria's entrepreneurship index rises to 0.47 points. That's according to a report on page 19 of the Vanguard newspaper. As Congressman Riley meets Ribadu security chiefs in Washington, U.S. Congress highlights alleged Christian genocide in Nigeria. On page 3, we're still trying to launder our image when the fire is actually getting hotter. First, school kids in Kebbi. We've had church goers, 35 of them, kidnapped, and we are a ransom of 100 million for each of them in Kwara State. Oh my God. We have really big problems here. Laundering our image has to be the least of our worries, or should have been the least of our worries. Unfortunately, it's not. Eruku church attack. Pattern of targeted violence now clear. That's from Can on page 4. Franklin, I've been thinking. So when some things happen, one of the things that crime analysts would assess is motive. Do you think that there is a sinister motive behind this Kwara kidnap, church-goers kidnap, at a time that this idea of Christians being prosecuted in Nigeria is getting this back and forth reaction? Some saying yes it is, some saying no, it's not true. And then the kidnap happens. Do you think it could be orchestrated in any way?
Well, I do not think that there is a difference between what has been happening and what happened in Kwara State. Of course, if you cast your mind around Nigeria, you know that the likes of a Plateau State have had such incident, or had such incident. Talk about Niger State had such incidents. Even Benue State, they have all had such incidents. So we have had situations where churches were targeted for any reason or the other. But all I can say is that they are all in the same category of bandits or whoever they were, going to church for whatever motive it could be. For me, I don't think that what is fueling this is because of maybe what is happening now, because of what U.S. President said. I don't think that there's a connection, but what I feel is that it's just the bandits being who they are.
All right. A final story on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper. Outrage over World Cup ouster. Time to kick out NFF. That's on page 13.
And the question is, who is going to kick out that very NFF? And then let's go over to the Nation newspaper where we have some headlines. And of course, the banner headline here says, fireworks in U.S. Congress over Nigeria's insecurity. It has a writer that says, lawmakers split on religious labeling of insurgency. In fact, I watched some part of that very Congress sitting or Congress session. I think it was more than 1 hour. I couldn't even finish it. And I saw that the lawmakers were divided. Some persons believe that it was a genocide, but some persons believe that it was beyond genocide. That you can't just, if you're just going to categorize it as genocide, that simply means that you are trying to reduce the
magnitude of what's happening.
Exactly, because some of them believe that what is happening in Nigeria is a complex insecurity issue. They now have subsets inside it, and the issue of genocide could just be a small set out of it.
Some also think it's an agenda to Islamize.
Of course, different things will to different for depending on how you view it. But there's one lady I watched her testimony. Doctor, I think is it Ononuju or Dera, but I'm trying to remember her surname, and her testimony was quite interesting because she came from the point of knowledge based on my own assessment. Let's look at another headline here. It says, Nnamdi Kanu gets life sentence for terrorism. It has a rider. It says, IPOB chief found guilty on all 7 counts. You can see the story on the front page of the Nation newspaper. This one says, Tinubu sends Matawale to Kebbi 900 troops to Kwara. The story is on page 4. Is it not this same Otawale that was accused of having, having links to bandits by the governor of Zamfara State?
This is Nigeria, Frank.
Then they said they sent him because he has experience in handling, bandit-related issues. Let's see what is going to happen.
Are we still talking negotiations here?
Perhaps because when he was governor, of course, I think he was able to negotiate his way through to be able to secure the release of some persons who were abducted.
Simply postponing doomsday.
Then this one says DSS files terrorism charges against 9 IPOB commanders linked to Simon Ekpa. You can see the story on page 4 of the Nation newspaper. Awolowo's grandson Olusegun dies at 62. The story is on page 4. Lagos allocate 245 billion naira bond to critical infrastructure. The story is on page 7 of the Nation newspaper. Then, major win for Nest Oil as court lifts asset freeze in alleged $1 billion debt dispute. You can see that above the nameplate of the Nation newspaper.
All right, then we're going over to the Punch, and on the front page of the Punch newspaper, some of the stories you'd find here include the banner headline: Live jail for Kano Southeast leaders rally for political solution. On pages 2 and 3, the writers: Kano to appeal judgment, Igbo elites to meet Tinubu, how Kano sparked courtroom chaos before life sentence. It was quite a scene. Alleged genocide, U.S. Congress split over Nigeria's CPC designation on page 2. Obafemi Awolowo's grandson Shegu dies at 62 on page 24. Lagos raises 244.8 billion naira bond to fund infrastructure. Auditor General indicts CBN over recycled 29.7 billion naira dirty bank notes on page 23. Ondo madman stabs NSCDC personnel to death on page 4. Tinubu governors celebrate Jonathan at 68. Yes, former president Goodluck Jonathan turned 68 yesterday. Major wins for Nest Oil as court lifts asset freeze in alleged $1 billion debt debt dispute. This is on page 41. A heavy ransom. Bandits demand 3 billion naira to free Kwara church goers on page 24. Actually, I think we are looking at 3.5 billion. Because there are 35 of them, and they're demanding 100 million each.
For each person. Well,
Sad.
quite interesting story. Then the story about the madman who stabbed NSCDC personnel to death. I read the story and I was asking myself, how unfortunate could this be? Because this man was on his own, and the mother of the madman, the guy was said to be about 19 years old, and the mother had to contact NSCDC officers to come and help her to chain the boy and take him to where he's going to undergo rehabilitation. And guess what? The madman took the knife. All these, they are defensive knife that they normally go about with. He took the knife and used it to stab the NSCDC officer, and that was how he died, just because he went for a response. Quite a sad one.
It's a really sad development.
We go back to the This Day newspaper. Let's see the headlines we have on This Day newspaper. And the banner headline here says, Nnamdi Kanu's terrorism trial ends after 10 years. Backs life imprisonment verdict. He has some riders to be held in protective custody. Abaribe, his life sentence, a preconceived plot against the Southeast. Army dismisses fake sit-at-home order, assures Southeast of full security. Then this one says major win for Nest Oil as court lifts asset freeze in an alleged $1 billion debt dispute. It has plenty of riders you can check out. Then this one says U.S. Congress holds hearing on insecurity, 6 ways to help Nigeria help itself. Then the story can be seen on page 9 of the This Day newspaper. These are the major headlines we can spot out from the front page of This Day newspaper.
Absolutely, the time is upon us. Now we're going to dive into the conversation proper. I know you are waiting, you are itching to hear how it's going to turn out, and I know you are itching to also have your say. But of course, all of that would happen on today's edition of the Polity. And like I said earlier, this is not going to be just from our perspective. We're going to be doing this with a lawyer. He's actually a Lagos-based lawyer. He's going to be joining us virtually. His name is Barrister Raymond Nkanebe. And of course, we're putting the call across right about now, and the conversation is going to start proper. And of course, like we said earlier, we are hooking up to Barrister Raymond and Kenneth. Barrister, can you hear me? Good morning. Yeah, you can hear me now. Good morning. Hello. Okay, I think there is some sort of network fluctuation there. Hello, Barrister. Okay, so while we try to set up the technical side of it, I think there's been some sort of technical glitches to the connection to that. While we try to fix that, we're going to be taking a look at some of the reports from yesterday, starting with what the This Day newspaper reported. Sincere apologies for the delay. Barrister Raymond, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I'm with you. Good morning.
Absolutely better. Good morning to you. Welcome to Dollar Radio 104.7 FM. This is the Polity. My name is Chisom Chinedu. You already know Franklin Ebuka?
Yeah, I do.
So no need to waste time on introductions, right? So yesterday, Nnamdi Kanu was sentenced. He got life sentence on 4 counts of terrorism, 20 years and 5 years, and other counts, all to run concurrently. And a lot of interpretations have been given to that judgment. Like I said earlier, we're not going to dwell so much on trying to replay some of the audio clips from the courtroom, but we saw some of the things that played out. Starting from personal conduct and how all of those things eventually ended, to the point of Kano even being taken out of the courtroom while his sentence was being read. He had representatives actually, but one of the things that actually stood out while that sentence was being read is the fact that it could have been a death sentence, but eventually mercy prevailed. That's the word now, and it ended in a life sentence. I'd like to know, looking at the legal grounds for that judgment, do you think that is what it should be, or it should have been less. Looking at the fact that some persons have called what Kano got is judgment based on double standards, because some persons have gone in the way or similar way that Kano has been on, and they didn't get life sentences.
Yes, yes. So thank you very much for having me. I think it's just best for us to put things in their best context so you can have a more informed, discussion.
Good.
You agree that this has been a very charged trial, and because of the undertones around the ethnic connotations and the perceptions of Igbo marginalization, it has not helped in framing the issues the way it ought to be. But looking at it from a legal perspective, I'm not going to be distracted by the other environmental associations with the case. I'll treat it from a pure legal perspective, because as far as the judge is concerned, judges are not affected by public opinion and other issues surrounding the case before them. So they deal with cases based on the facts presented before them and what the law says about it. Now, within that context, luckily enough, the judgment made its way to the public yesterday, and I've had time to, have a clean sweep of the judgment of my Lord Justice James Omotosho. On the first issue, raised that the judgment, the maximum punishment under the law is actually a death sentence, but the court deferred to a life sentence. And if you look at what the judge said, he said globally the sentence of a death sentence is no longer a fashionable sentence, because the world has substantially moved away from capital punishment due to the sanctity of human life. So even people who are on death row in our prisons ultimately get committed to life imprisonment, because at the end of the day, you have to give every man a chance. And that's why my Lord had to go through the book of Matthew in the Bible to, explore the role of mercy in human conduct. And of course, it was within the court's discretion to do that by committing it to a life sentence instead of, a life imprisonment instead of a death sentence. So having said that, the court went through the details of the charge against the defendant, or now they call it Mazen and Bikami, the 7-count charge, inciting the people or the supporters against the Nigerian state, comments that led to, arson, burning, killing of military operatives and all of that. The evidence was so. I have to give kudos to the prosecution team, who despite all the intimidation and all the whole thing that played out in court, they were not distracted by it. They kept on presenting their case brick by brick, up to the point where they closed it. And if you see when my Lord was reviewing the evidence yesterday, it sufficiently, tied Nnamdi Kanu to the act that he was alleged to have committed. And it didn't help matters that he did not lead a defense. If he had led a defense, perhaps he would have, one way or the other, colored the mind of the judge on some of those counts, so that he can take advantage of the principle in criminal jurisprudence that if there is any doubt in the mind of a judge, that doubt will be resolved in favor of the defendant. So that's where he got his mix up. If he had led a defense, the court would have resolved some of those counts in his favor. Maybe would have had a way lesser sentence. But based on how it happened, his lordship had to review the case of the prosecution in the way it was presented. And not just that, he's just taking it hook, line, and sinker. His lordship also subjected the case of the prosecution to the highest litmus test of the law in arriving at the determinations that it eventually made. Because the fact that a person has not led a defense does not automatically mean that all that has been said against him are true. A court they also have to subject the allegations to the evidence that was said vis-a-vis what the law has said in coming to a determination. And unfortunately for Mazi Kanu, the law and the facts and the evidence led swayed substantially the mind of the judge in arriving at the judgment his lordship delivered yesterday. It's quite unfortunate, but the law is what it is. And I keep telling people, judges are trained. The training that a judge goes through, some way, extricates his mind from the public opinion around the cases before a judge. And even as lawyers too, sometimes also rubs off on us. When you are conducting a case, you don't care what anybody is saying out there. You are focused to the facts. Because as you say in the law court, facts are king. It is the fact that shapes judicial outcomes. You get. So when people are saying is victimized, prosecuted, and all of those, so the mind of the judge who is saddled with responsibility of the trial, he is not going to be affected by public opinion beyond what was demonstrated before him. Unfortunately, one man became a legal team, as we ever had one. They never demonstrated anything before the judge to, raise prima facie doubt in the mind of the judge. Yes, for the case of prosecution, he filed a no-case submission. And what's a no-case submission? In a no-case, a defendant is saying, yes, I have heard all that the prosecution said I've done. And I don't think they have led any evidence that links me sufficiently to the crime or to the offenses alleged. Now, after they filed their no-case submission, the court overruled it and said, come and enter your defense. I think that based on what has been said before me by the prosecution, you have got to answer for some of these allegations. That was the point that a defense would have helped tremendously, color the mind of the judge in order to maybe, to an extent, elicit favorable judicial outcomes for the defense. But unfortunately, that did not happen in this case.
Okay, so looking at that very judgment, because from what I've seen so far, we've seen different commentaries trailing that, both from lawyers and from laymen. And some persons believe that it was justice served, but some other persons believe that it was the culmination of a supposed plot against the Igbo nation. So what do you look at judgment as? Do you see the judgment as justice served in this very case, or it confirms what some persons believe, that there was a plot to condemn Kanu?
Thank you very much. That's a difficult question, but in order to answer the question whether it was justice served, I think we should. How about I flip the question in this way? The person who lost loved ones due to the act of some of the ESN elements or IRPOB operatives in the Southeast, what do you think that judgment will come to them as yesterday? As far as they are concerned, for them, that judgment was a source of reprieve for their loved ones who died due to the activities directly connected to Mazi Kanu. For me, I think that is the litmus test of whether what happened yesterday was justice or not. It's not even it's not for us, it's not persons who are not affected to say. It's for persons who are the direct recipients of the consequences of Mazi Kanu's activity. It is for them to say whether yesterday's event was justice or otherwise. And if you know, in my introduction, I said I'm not going to be distracted by political opinion on this trial, because political opinion by their nature are founded on sentiment. So, and if you come to matters of law with sentiment, then you are not bound to get any informed or objective association. So I will not allow political sentiment to cloud a clear case of a criminal proceeding that have come to a halt yesterday.
Okay, barrister, I am pretty sure that you are quite aware of what it's been like in the Southeast since the idea of IPOB started, and since Nnamdi Kanu's extraordinary rendition It's been a lot. For instance, the Southeast has been sitting at home every Monday for quite some years now. You know, when you talk about the effects on the people who lost loved ones, we talk about the effects on the lives of the people in the Southeast generally. I tell you what, growing up as a child, villages used to be like the converging point. If you are from the Southeast, you'd know that some give it 10 years ago, the Asaba bridge, the first Niger bridge, people stay locked there for days because people are trying to make their way home from different parts of the world to spend time at home in the Southeast.
Absolutely.
But the Southeast has become a shadow of itself. It's become a skeleton. Families having children that have never touched down home. And this is not because they want to be a lost generation. This is because the escalation of what the entire secession plot has ended up being is the Southeast not being home enough. It's the Southeast not being safe. About 2 years ago, December last 2 years, we saw countless videos of people being attacked on their way home to the Southeast. Now, some persons have argued that this is an offshoot of the entire order that came from kill security operatives, and when there are no security operatives to attack, they have to keep funding the lifestyle, right? And the people become their prey. The supposed protectors become the predators, and the people they supposedly were protecting became the prey. I also recall that in one of the testimonies given by someone who alleges to know how the insecurity in some parts of Ihiala and Imo State became almost institutionalized. It came from this supposed security network founded by IPOB being brought in to assist with certain communal issues, and eventually the community became overrun by these elements. The point is that the insecurity in the Southeast, according to some persons, orchestrated by this entire movement, is alarming. We can breathe it, we can see it, we can feel it. You go to the villages, and cousins who used to come home to spend time with you cannot come, and the only reason is the Southeast is not safe. However, after yesterday, some persons have looked at it. You know, analysts have projected a possible escalation of tension and unrest in the Southeast. Is this something that should be worried about?
Okay. Thank you so much for framing that question in that light, because it ties with the statement I issued yesterday after the judgment. And what did I say? I asked the question because from day one, I have taken the view, yes, whether you like it or not, the Nnamdi Kanu trial it has, because of its political undertones, no matter what, it's going to remain a political trial. So, and I ask the question: has this judgment now, has it solved the Nnamdi Kanu question?
Exactly. Has it solved the tension, the problem?
Has it solved the Nnamdi Kanu question? Now, the answer is very obvious. It hasn't. If anything, it looks like it's going to exacerbate the situation. And that's why I have said political issues or political trials, always the best way to resolve them are through political solutions. You get. And what is the political solution in this circumstance? And that's why I said yesterday that even though this judgment might have ended negatively, or this trial might have come negatively for Nnamdi Kanu, there might well be a silver lining to it all. And what is that silver lining? Just as the deputy speaker said yesterday, was quoted as saying, Benjamin Kalu, he said the culmination of this trial now opens a door or a window for consideration of a political solution, because doing that while the trial was going on would have been maybe a little difficult, because the federal government might take the view that if they should settle for a political solution while the trial was going on, it might be perceived as a weakness on their part, or perceived as though they never had any case against them from day one. So perhaps they wanted to take the case to a logical conclusion. Now that he has been convicted, Nnamdi Kanu is a candidate for the government prerogative of mercy. He is now a candidate to benefit from the federal government prerogative of mercy, which the president has within his powers to exercise. And recently, it was exercised to some class of convict. However, the big question is, would Nnamdi Kanu conduct himself and comport himself in a way that he could benefit from any sort of consideration by the federal government? That is the question that no one seems to know the answer, because the grants of prerogative of mercy would not be unconditional. It has to be on terms. There is no government that is ready to cede its territory to any splinter group. Presidents swear an oath upon assumption of office to keep the country together. So would Nnamdi Kanu agree to an exchange of mercy for dropping his violent secessionist agitation? He could make a case for a better Igbo nation within the context of a political arrangement without necessarily, beating the drums of secession. Nnamdi Kanu may well become a next president of Nigeria of Igbo extraction if he galvanizes all this energy and support around a political movement to not enhance or improve the welfare of Ndi Igbo, as it were. So this is the direction that I think we have to now look at. Would Nnamdi Kanu jettison the idea of backing on an appeal, even though it is within his constitutional right to appeal his decision? Can he jettison those ideas? Can he spend some time in confinement to reflect and then allow for the federal government, based on engagement by Igbo leaders, to find a way to negotiate a solution that indeed restores the Southeast we all grew up knowing how it used to be? Because as it is today, we must have had the culmination of the judicial process. Unfortunately, it does not answer the question of restoring peace in the Southeast.
Okay, so Barrister, I have this very question because if you look at the trial of Nnamdi Kanu, there were 7 counts leveled against him, and they bordered on Kanu's secession agitation to disintegrate Southeast, South, and some part of the Middle Belt from Nigeria. That's one. Then another of the counts was on engaging in acts of terrorism, belonging to proscribed group, killing security operatives, burning and destroying public property, concealment, and the importation of unregistered radioactive transmitters. So all the charges bordered on this. And yesterday, the judge took time to read out what he believed that Kanu committed. I believe that you watched the transmission live, or you must have read the judgment, and you must have come across all the atrocities that the judge listed that he committed.
Yes.
Some persons are questioning those things that were read out, saying that they did not hold water. So for you as a lawyer, did Kanu do most of the things that the judge read out, which he was found guilty of?
Okay. So for me as a lawyer, and I have to go back to how I opened this engagement. The principle of law is he who asserts must prove, right? And criminal trials begin with discharge of burden of proof. When a trial opens, the prosecution that has the legal burden to discharge to demonstrate the offense of the defendant, they call their witnesses, they tender documents, they lead evidence basically. After the end of their case, an evidential burden passes on to the defendant to rebut all that has been said. If a defendant does not do that, then it makes the case of the prosecution a lot more easier, because there is no response to what they have said. Not of what they have said, what they have demonstrated. If you look at the evidence of the PW4, who said he was in Imo State for over 53 years, and in fact he lost his own driver and also one of his staff due to the activity of Nnamdi Kanu and the ESN operatives. If you look at the evidence around the death of Mr. Ahmed Gulag, who he said was killed on a sit-at-home day, I think the evidence were just too overwhelming. And then look at the video recording with Sarah reporters during the NSAS protest, where Nnamdi Kanu was caught on tape, making declaration, giving directives to burn down the Nigerian state, to burn down insignias of federal authority, burn down police stations, burn down, symbols of the state, basically. And I don't think anybody who is objective would be heard saying he did not do it. You don't have to be the one that directly do it. Hence, people do it on your instruction. And as a connection to you, you are in criminal law, you are as liable as the person who committed the actual act. It's called conspiracy. If myself and yourself and the lady there said, let us go and rob a bank, and then I stay here and I'm giving you signals, okay, move on, the police are not here yet. Even though I'm not at the scene, if you guys are apprehended, all of us will be liable for the same act.
Absolutely.
So I keep saying, our people, we also have to help our people in helping them with the propaganda around this trial has been too much. Okay. We have a duty to set the facts right in spite of the noise of propaganda all over the place. We must set the facts right to enable informed commentary around this issue.
Okay, we need to go on a commercial break. Barrister, you stay on the line. When we come back, the conversation is not ending anytime soon, because I'm pretty sure that a lot of persons have so much to say. And also, I'd like to find out what you think about juxtaposing what Kanu got with what people who have gone similar ways got. I remember I mentioned that earlier, but I'm not sure you gave me a concrete answer. A lot of persons will look at Asari Dokubo today and say, this man was almost on the path that Kanu took. And Asari Dokubo is a free man. As a matter of fact, Asari Dokubo, last I checked, fraternizes with Asurok. And so I'd like us to also take a look at that. But before then, some commercials. Gentlemen, do stay.
You're listening to Dollar Radio 104.7 FM. Seriously authentic.
When the city sleeps, the river remembers. When the drums call, Onitsha awakens. This December, the call grows louder as Udala Radio joins forces with the Golibe Festival 2025. From December 26th to New Year's Day, the heartbeat of the East comes alive. Music, laughter, art, culture, and the unstoppable joy of homecoming. This year promises more energy, more color, more connection. A festival for every proud son and daughter of Igbo land. Stay tuned to Udala Radio, your front row seat to the celebration that never fades. Golibe Festival 2025. Exclusive media support by Udala Radio. It's not just a festival, it's who we are. mana dịka nwafọ Naija nwoke maọbụ nwaanyị ebe ugbu a ị kwesịrị ime onye na-akpọ gị n'ekwentị. Ohere na-abịa sọ naanị otu ugboro, mana nke bụ ezigbo ajụjụ dị na ya bụ ị ga-adịkwa na njikere. Ekwekwala ka ohere ọzọ ganarị. Lee anya otu kọlụ ziri ezi nwere ike ịgbanwe ndụ gị. Tinye Truecaller app n'ekwentị gị tata, mara onye na-akpọ gị, hụ na ịtụfughị ohere ịnweta otu kọlụ ahụ nwere ike ịgbanwe ihe niile. Truecaller, za ezigbo oku.
You're listening to Dollar Radio 104.7 FM. Seriously authentic. You're listening to the Polity. Get involved now.
It is here to Polity on Odala Radio 104.7 FM. And of course, today we're actually taking a deep look into the sentences handed down to the indigenous people of Biafra IPOB leader Nnamdi Kanu yesterday. Heaviest of which is a life sentence of 4 terrorism counts. There are 7 charges against him. There's a 20 and a 5-year sentence on all the counts, and all of them are set to run concurrently. We're having this conversation with Barrister Raymond, and of course, Barrister, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, then. Before we went on that break, we were going to talk about Kanu's trial, the fairness at the end of everything, looking at the fact that there are people who have trailed the path, similar paths, but we haven't seen them, being handled the way Kanu was handled. Also, there are some serious, what I call it, contested legal issues with people arguing that the law under which Kanu was tried has been repealed. Speaking about the Terrorism Prevention Act of 2020 versus the 2022 Act.
All right. So let me just take the first issue around the allegation of selective treatment, and let us use the Asai Dokubo case as a case study. Now, the Asai Dokubo case came on the heels or the backdrop of the restiveness in the Niger Delta, isn't it? Between 2005 2007. Don't forget that in 2005, the Obasanjo government charged Asai Dokubo with treason, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Now, the situation has continued, and as it lingered on, tensions in the Niger Delta escalated. In 2007, the Yar'Adua government came into power, and that government came and promised the amnesty program in the Niger Delta because of the depletion in the nation's food oil resources due to the activities of Niger Delta militants, isn't it? Now, there was a window of active negotiation and discussion between Niger Delta leaders and the then Yar'Adua government. It is the culmination of those discussions that led to the order for the release of Asai Dokubo by the Yar'Adua government. He was released on the orders of the president within the framework of the amnesty program. So it ties to what I've been saying. It is not going to be unconditional. You will recall that the amnesty program ended up with the militants laying down their arms in exchange for amnesty. And in fact, some of them went on to live better lives. And that's why I told you that Nnamdi Kanu can become the next Nigerian president of Igbo extraction. In fact, he has the platform to do that. He just needs to calibrate his strategy and his modus operandi. You can do that.
Okay, so let's look at the arguments that some of the laws he was tried on have been repealed.
Again, let us stop this. I keep saying this propaganda around this trial. You can't tell me that a judge who has over 30 years training as a lawyer before he became a judge would try a defendant on a very elementary issue as a law that has been repealed. It doesn't make sense. Nnamdi Kanu was tried under the Terrorism Prevention Act 2013. The charges were framed against that backdrop. So those that are saying a repealed law have not the judge in the judgment yesterday addressed that issue. If you are charged under a law, right, and subsequently the law is repealed, it is the law that was enforced as at the time when you committed the offense that you be tried again. So if today to drive from Lagos to Anambra State is a crime, and you make a trip and you are tried for that offense, if 2 years after they said it's no longer an offense, but because your trial is still pending, you then say no, I can no longer be tried because this law has been repealed. No, the relevant date is the date at the time the charge was aimed against you, the law that was enforced at the time. I have looked at the charge. He was charged under the Terrorism Prevention Act 2013, which was enforced at the time of the charges. So that argument again is neither here nor there. it fits the same propaganda which Nnamdi Kanu repeated consistently in a typical Joseph Goebbels style, repeating a false narrative, and over time it acquires the semblance of truth. He kept on saying, show me the law under which I'm charged. But the law was there. In fact, when you look at the practice, that every criminal judgment begins with the charge and the particular law which the offense is in fact.
Okay, Franklin.
Okay, so just to add a follow-up question to the one Chisom raised about double standard, because some persons have queried, what they describe as a double standard in the justice administration in Nigeria, whereby some we are pointing to the fact that if you go to the northeast and even some part of northwest, we have bandits and some terrorists who have been in negotiation with government officials just because government wants peace in that very area. So they're trying to juxtapose what is happening over there and what has happened to Kano. So how do you respond to this scenario people have been painting?
Oh, okay. This issue has also, been in the front burner for too long. And I've always been of the view that context is very important in every intellectual engagement. We must get the context right. Let me just say on this call that I schooled at the University of Maiduguri. In fact, I was in Maiduguri when Mohammed Yusuf, the founder of Boko Haram, was killed. So I'm not alien to the context of violence and the issues. I socialize in the north substantially, even though I now live in the southwest and I'm from the southeast. So in a sense, I have a global. I can say I'm a better Nigerian to a very large extent in having a first-hand picture of issues and the context around them. The northwest and the northeast have been grappling with insecurity for quite a number of years, no doubt about that. Now, if it were that Mohammed Sekau was apprehended by the federal government authorities and they refused to prosecute him, those arguments could be valid. But if different northern state governments are taking steps within their own remit to have some semblance of negotiations with persons fomenting troubles in their region, I'm not going to read it as a selective treatment. I'm not, because if Nnamdi Kanu has availed himself the opportunity of those contacts, I'm very sure that similar thing would have been done, because there is no government that sees the opportunity of a faster way of security that would not take it. There isn't. So I don't see it as a case of any selective treatment. I don't, because Ahmed Shakar was never apprehended by the Nigerian state and they did not prosecute him. No. In fact, the guy I learned he was on the cusp of being apprehended, but he wore bomb around him and they threw, and then the man exploded and he died in the process. So let's not mix apples and oranges, because we're not going to help us in making progress in this issue.
Okay, so let's look at the issue of the law and the morality in this very case, and I'm going to cite a couple of them before the question comes. Now, there are some issues that have been raised about the trial of Nnamdi Kanu, even beginning from the time he was rendition from Kenya to Nigeria, and there are questions about the legality of the arrest and the manner he was extradited. Then there's also a question about the refusal of the relevant agencies to comply with various court orders mandating his release and bails pending further trials. There's also a question about the patterns of evidence and admission of testimonies and evidence before the court. We know that some of the persons who testified against him, they were masked, and people were questioning why that was entertained by the court. Then there's also a question about the perceived subjection to servitude and inhuman treatment of Kanu when he was in detention, at the point when he was being tried. There's also another question about the reliance on hearsay evidence. They now talk about the issue of, the arrogant refusal of Kanu to be defended by competent legal representatives in the court and other things that have been raised. Now, my question is, if the process is faulty or jaundiced, can the outcome be valid and legitimate?
Okay. Okay, that's a very good question, and I think the likes of Dr. Sab Amadi has canvassed this view. We're on a platform together, and he has shared this sentiment on this along this line. Yes, the process, because the adjudication is in effect a process, and the process ought to be free and fair in order to legitimize the outcome. If the process is not free and fair, it has the tendency of prejuring the outcome. Now, you raised a number of issues. I will just try to take them one after the other. I am not trying to hold brief for the federal government here. I'm just trying to provide an objective perspective to these issues to enable a fuller understanding of what is happening. The issue around is extraordinary rendition from Kenya to Nigeria. The Supreme Court has resolved that question. The Supreme Court has resolved that question, that at best, it is an infraction of international law. It is not an infraction of municipal laws. And so, irrespective of the controversial circumstances under which Nnamdi Kanu was brought back to country to face a trial that was pending, it would not affect the legitimacy of the trial. This is the Supreme Court's judgment. For the better part of that trial, Nnamdi Kanu always waived that Supreme Court judgment in court. Even though I don't know the interpretation he has this morning, what the Supreme Court has said. But the court addressed the issue frontally, that irrespective of how you are brought back to the country, it's only impacted international law, which you can ventilate at international forums like the ICJ and all of that. But as far as Nigerian courts are concerned, it does not affect the legitimacy of your trial. Now, on the issue of bail that was granted him and whether the court did not obey him. So if you are granted bail by a court and for under any circumstance you flout or you dump bail, it automatically denies you the right to ask for a bail at a subsequent time. Nnamdi Kanu did not help his cause by eloping from Nigeria. Yeah, I know the circumstances under which he said that happened. There was an invasion of his country home by Nigerian military authorities, and then on the back of that, he eloped. Maybe the argument we made that day, I don't know, but as far as the law was concerned, he was not available to stand his trial. Don't forget, at some point, Senator Eyinaya Abaribe, who has stood shortly for him, was made to forfeit the 100 million naira bail bond he had paid for him. So, having John bail at the initial trial, it makes things difficult for any court to admit him to bail, given the peculiarities around his condition. Now, you can't see that as an evidence of unfairness. I would rather see it as a law responding to the reality or peculiarities of a situation of this defendant. Now, the other issue has to do with, I think you said the hearsay evidence or not hearsay evidence.
Then the mask
witnesses. The mask witnesses.
Yes.
Under our criminal laws, that process is well founded. In fact, in election petition cases that we do, we don't put the name of witnesses in their witness statement on oath. I do a lot of election petitions. Matters that have the tendency that are highly charged, there is a framework for witness protection where you mark the witness and you don't give out their name. You give their name by way of alphabet. You can say AA, ZZ. So these things are the law has contemplated, and this is not the first trial we have been seeing mass witnesses. We've seen it in different other trials. You get. Now, on the issue of hearsay and not hearsay, what is hearsay or not hearsay is strictly within the remit of a judge. Now, if the judge has relied, because the hearsay rule also has its own exceptions. As you know with law, every other provision tends to have an exception. So, I'm not going to put myself in the shoes of a judge who came to a determination that this evidence is admissible.
Okay.
Those are matters for appeal. If Nnamdi Kanu is minded to challenge on appeal. But of course, I don't see any way through that. And again, there are matters that would have been seriously canvassed as a defense. But we never saw any defense at that trial. So who is responsible if a man fails to do or take advantage of the provisions of the law? You don't blame his adversary. You don't do that. And I have to say it on this call. I have to say it. I'm hard pressed to say it. That Nnamdi Kanu has not been served by his choice of counsel. And I said it with due respect to the very senior counsel who he had to involve at some point. But you also recognize that at some point, most of the senior counsel had to exit the trials. I will not mention names, but the consistent members of that team who at some point came across as though they are also members of the IPOB group did not help matters. If the issues had been engaged from a strict legalistic point of view, from a serious-minded criminal attorney, I don't want to assert any outcome, but I don't think we would have gotten where we are. But when you have lawyers who you can't differentiate from the court you are fighting, it makes it difficult for them to apply the best of their professional judgment.
Okay, just a quick one. Just a quick one, because we're trying to manage our time now. You saw what happened at the court, because Kanu was insistent that the written application he filed should be addressed in court on that yesterday. So I would like you to address it, whether he was making a point or not. And secondly, what was the idea, or what do you think was the idea or motive behind Kanu choosing not to enter a defense? Was it ignorance? Was it strategy? Was it braggadocio? Or maybe it was a PR stunt for him, because maybe he believed that if he had gone the other way around, it would have demystified him before his followers.
Okay, thank you. Now, on the first issue of the final written address, the filing of it or not filing of it, again, I take us back to the judgment. The judge was very clear that on multiple occasions, Nnamdi Kanu was asked to open his defense. He failed to open his defense. Ultimately, he was granted leave to file a written address. As a matter of fact, you don't file a written address, you have not let any defense. So for the court to even cognize and give the opportunity to say something at the end of the day, I think the court was being magnanimous, in my own opinion. In fact, the judge said that whatever he filed will be deemed as a final written address. And what happened afterwards? Now the Kanu filed a document he titled Motion on Notice and then Comprehensive Written Address or something of that nature. And based on the judge's analysis of that document, Nnamdi Kanu was raising issues around the lack of jurisdiction on the court to try him, the unconstitutionality of the whole trial, things that sounded in the mode of a defense, as it were. And the judge said, I'm going to deem this as your final written address, and I'm going to consider it on the merit. In fact, he titled it Comprehensive Final Written Address. So again, it ties back my point of undue propaganda around this issue. As far as we are concerned, there was a final written address that was recognized by the court that was filed by Nnamdi Kanu in aid of his defense. Now, on the issue of the entering, why he refused to enter his defense and all of that, I don't know. I think I was discussing with somebody, and I told him, I guess maybe this is just he saw it as an opportunity to have his last stand in the media. He's quite a brilliant guy, and I think having sat for almost 10 years, he must have gotten so engaged with the beautiful side of law, and maybe he thought he could actually do this himself. But even the best of lawyers, when they have issues, know too well to brief a different counsel. Even the best of lawyers know too well that when you have a case against you, you don't conduct it yourself. You brief another counsel. So,
All right.
I don't know, but whatever it was, the consequences are very clear.
All right, so let's take a look at two things and then we open the phone lines, all right? The first being the risks and the lessons. Some persons have projected that there is a risk of further radicalization on some of the followers of Nnamdi Kanu. Some persons are saying, brace up, Southeast, it's about to get even worse. And of course, we are looking at what lessons are to be learned from what went down, not just yesterday, but the days following or the days before yesterday. And also, some persons have raised serious concerns pertaining the political angle of this entire judgment. Where does that leave political actors in the Southeast, the governors? And some persons have even said, oh, well, this is probably a political strategy for 2027. Have him convicted, give him a presidential pardon, and let the Southeast owe you their votes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the risk factors are very clear, and we have weighed it over the course of this discussion. In fact, I had to put a call down yesterday to some of my people in the East that I think the matter of what has happened. They should be a little more careful because we don't know how some of these groups might react to this issue. And the next is at home being Monday, nobody knows how it's going to be. So are there going to be risk factors? Absolutely. Absolutely. And it comes to the point that this trial and the judgment has not solved the question. Now, what are the lessons? The lessons are very clear that at the end of the day, the justice process have a way of arriving at outcomes that best reflect the general objective of the state. And what is the general state objective? The security of lives, properties, and the welfare of the people. Every judicial system, by default, responds against any act that have the implication of damaging the state. Nnamdi Kanu's activities were actions directly against the state and the corporate existence. And the lessons we have seen that the judicial system has responded to that issue rightly or wrongly based on where one chooses to look at things. So the other lesson there is that at the end of the day, every action has consequences. And the consequences sometimes may be there. And then the political angle is what I think we should, all civil leaders and stakeholders and intellectuals in the region should find a way to, exploit. We now have a concluded trial that is a window for engagement. I'm happy that the Deputy Speaker, Okuze Benjamin Kalu, an Igbo man, has, voiced that. I also hope that Nnamdi Kanu's representative who was at that trial throughout, Honorable Obiagocha, I hope he has written to the president. I hope he can also further, engage and see how we can arrive at a political solution. But I must warn again, it can't be unconditional. It must be on terms. And what are the terms? Abandoning of the violent secessionist movement and conversion of all this energy around a political movement to advance the cause of individuals like Martin. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Barrister, for your contribution so far. We're going to go on a commercial break, and when we come back, we'll open up the phone lines. And just to also let you know that this morning there's been reports of another school kidnap in Niger State. According to this report, it happened in a Catholic school. All right, the gunmen took 52 students from the Catholic school or a Catholic school in Niger State. Now, a statement from the Niger State government confirmed that there's been a kidnap, and the Niger State government said it is saddened. It happened at St. Mary's School. Security agencies are already searching for the students, and this is just before we can breathe. From 25 students taken in Kebbi, they have still not been found. 35 people abducted in Kwara, and they are demanding 100 million for every person that was taken. At this point, I'd say Quichway, Nigeria, keep it locked. It's still the Polity.
You're listening to Dollar Radio 104.7 FM. Seriously authentic.
Quality bread, Wendy's bread, for your family breakfast. Wendy's bread, I'll pack it on the yellow. Wendy's bread, mama, papa, they like Wendy's bread, kitchen and duo. Wendy's bread, even children, they like Wendy's bread, Wendy's bread, and in town. Wendy's bread, you get it better, tasty, we go sweet your belly. Wendy's bread, Wendy's your bachichon. Wendy's bread,
Wendy's bread, tasty bread. You can contact us on our official address, Second Business Park, Enugu Road, GRA, beside Misha, Anambra State. We also have another branch at St. Michael Plaza at Tandy Road. Also contact us on 070-1149-1571. Wendy's bread, your tasty bread.
Wendy's bread.
When the city sleeps, the river remembers. When the drums call, Onitsha awakens. This December, the call grows louder as Udala Radio joins forces with the Golibe Festival 2025. From December 26th to New Year's Day, the heartbeat of the East comes alive. Music, laughter, art, culture, and the unstoppable joy of homecoming. Golibe! This year promises more energy, more color, more connection. A festival for every proud son and daughter of Igbo land. Stay tuned to Udala Radio, your front row seat to the celebration that never fades. Golibe Festival 2025. Exclusive media support by Udala Radio. It's not just a festival, it's who we are.
Udala Radio 104.7 FM. You're listening to The Polity. Get involved now.
Now we're about to open up the phone lines, but we have a couple of ground rules. Now, number 1, be as objective as possible. Number 2, be as objective as possible. Number 3, be as objective as possible. Then number 4, turn down the volume on your radio set. Number 5, let's not waste time on pleasantries. Go straight to the point. 0803-221-6973, 0803-876694. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Yes, good morning.
It's my pleasure to be here, the voice of JC Akwoti. I'm wishing you all the way from my home, Salumwero Cable this morning.
Go ahead, please.
Yes, I want to really appreciate the federal government of Nigeria and the judiciary for bringing to an end banditry, kidnapping, the insurgents, and the economic quagmire and the poor healthcare system. I mean, by sentencing Nnamdi Kanu to life imprisonment has brought all these things to an end. And we will say congratulations to the Southeast stakeholders, the politicians. Oh my word. The Nigerians are happy, the Southeasterners are happy, the kidnappings in the north have come to an end. So Nnamdi Kanu is the founder of terrorism in Nigeria, the head of the Boko Haram.
So, JC Akobi, while I understand that you're being sarcastic, I cannot explain to everybody listening to Dala right now that you are being sarcastic, right?
Yes,
so could you please be more plain with what you mean to say? And you have 2 minutes. You've exhausted like 1 minute already.
Oh my word, I'm resting my case. I said Nnamdi Kanu rest in peace in prison. Nigeria, one Nigeria, congratulations.
All right. For the records, he was being sarcastic. Nnamdi Kanu has not been sentenced to death. When he said rest in peace, it might connote something else to some listeners. He's not been sentenced to death. He was only sentenced to life imprisonment, and there's a 20 and a 5-year jail term also run concurrently. Good morning.
Wonderful morning to you.
Good morning to you.
Thank you so much, Franklin. Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
I'm calling from Monitor.
Go ahead,
just
please.
go to the point here.
Yeah.
Some couple of days back, the judges allegedly were singing on your mandate to stand, Mr. President. And one of the chief judge came out to debunk it. It's also clear to us that these judges' houses are being built for them by the FCC minister. That's the presidency. Now, what do you expect? I would have loved it your barrister or the man you put on phone to have explained to us. When you have a case with federal government that judges are singing on your mandate to stand and is building houses for them, dictating the pace of their whatever they're doing, do you stand a chance of winning that case? Your guest would have answered that question. So to me, I think trying to appeal this judgment is a waste of time. That's the simple truth. The best thing to adopt is a political solution. Or Igbo should wait and mark Nnamdi Kanu. That is the simple truth, because looking at these judges in Nigeria, judgment is for the highest bidder. How can judges be singing on your mandate to stand?
I haven't seen that video of judges singing on your mandate to stand.
But the video is everywhere.
And
you are a journalist. You need not to. The video is though one of their president, whatever, came out and was debunking it. The video is everywhere.
The video is not everywhere. I bet. Listen, give me a second. It's easy for you to say you're a journalist, this, that. That video that you allege is on your mandate will stand. I have tried to find it, and I have not seen it. We've also had NJI debunk that particular allegation that judges were saying on your mandate will stand. Now, if we are also making reference to what transpired the day that President Tinubu attended the event, a judiciary event, I think it would be a mix-up of agenda to now trail it entirely down to the sentence Nnamdi Kanu got. No, that would be what I call it, a theory, a conspiratory theory at the end of the day.
What I'm trying to say is this. It is very difficult. Seriously, since Muhammadu Buhari is the past president, created the judges form, remove unlawfully, okay? Since the FCC administration, judges are no longer the same. You hardly win a case even against the state government. Before then, you stand a chance for winning a case against them. Do you think that if people would be, if it were not that somebody would have won that election, they won by the court? The answer is no. You wouldn't have won it. Now, I make chairman come and tell you, go to court. They know what they're doing. So, all I'm trying to say is this. Even apart from the victim video, wherever they must have hidden the video, even apart from the video, the fact is on ground here. Even with a lot of evidence to present in the court, they look for technicalities to let up the case. So all we are trying to say is this. They're trying to appeal the judgment, fine for them, but personally to me, I don't see any light at the end of the tunnel. They are predetermining what they want to do and they have done it. And it's unfortunate that this is coming at a time that Nigeria is deeply divided. At a time that the U.S. government is branding Nigeria a country of a particular concern, instead of you to build the country together, you are busy dividing the country more and more. What is good for the good should be good for the gender. You handle the bandits with air pressure. When it comes for the Southeast, you handle them with an insecticide. And you expect this country to be one. I wish them well. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you for your contribution. Like I said earlier, I take exceptions to you projecting certain things on me personally. But also, like I said, I recall the incident you're talking about. That it's the judges conference, right? It happened a few days ago. And I remember we also sat here and we looked at the charges that the president gave, speaking about independence, and we said the judiciary as it is cannot categorically be dubbed very independent, looking at facts before every Nigerian, not just the media. So it would be totally unfair for you to project your conspiracy theories and then make it one person's fault. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, the parliamentarian.
Good morning. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Obike from Obochi.
Go ahead, please. You have 2 minutes.
I proceed. This one may see, you say the truth and dance the consequences. About the case of our brother Nani, there's a limit. You as a personality, as an indigenous or non-indigenous in this country, need to put in a court law. No matter how you go, you're not supposed to stand strong in presence of all the judges, telling them that you don't have any case to answer. You don't have anybody to talk to, and they give you 6 days for you to proceed. It's on my witness. I did not. I watched it on a channel television yesterday. I was pained in my heart. How can you stand in the presence of court, federal government, and begin to tell them, say, that God will punish all of them before they take you out? Now, the judge, the one you know, and the one you don't know on top of your head, and they judge you to give you a life in prison.